Okay, hope you all felt inspired by that film and the opportunities it presents. We're excited to have with us tonight Klaus Major. Klaus brings deep experience in the food sector. He retired. Before he retired, he worked for Walt Disney as Director of Creative Development for Food and Beverage in Hong Kong. He moved to Bend in 2016, and he joined the Bend CCL chapter. He also joined the CCL National Agriculture team, where he became sector lead for food and agriculture for business climate leaders. Klaus is actively promoting regenerative food system to restore our soils and watersheds back to health, and he is the driving force behind this event here tonight. It's all yours, Klaus. Take it away.
Thank you. I don't even know if I'm the driving force, because Dan and Karen did just an amazing job to get us organized here, and it's amazing how much it takes to put all this together. But let me just get into setting the stage for what we wanted to convey today. So I'm what you call a systems designer in food. I designed food systems for theme parks and hotels and entertainment centers. And then I worked international as a strategist for a very large food wholesaler who worked in 30 different countries. So I retired and started to get into sustainability issues. I started taking courses at MIT and Columbia and so on, and just scared myself to death ever since, because when you really begin to understand what we're doing to the environment, it is absolutely incredible. And so when to fix this is a systems approach. So let me explain. Yale Climate Connections just came out saying that if we don't, absent any revolutionary changes in dietary patterns or agricultural production practices, we're going to fly right by any kind of limit that we have in mind in terms of climate change. So 0.7 to 0.9 degrees Celsius just attributed to the food system. 1/3 of global emissions are related to food. Now, I've been arguing with many NGOs and also with legislators here who insist that agriculture is only 10–11%. That's true. But what is also true is that we are shipping food around the globe for thousands of miles. We are transporting, processing, refrigerating. We are cutting down trees. So by the time you put together all of food from farm to table, with waste starting at the farm itself already, 1/3 of global emissions are related to the food system. 40%, and look it up, when you go online, Google it, 40% of our food goes to waste. Starting at the farm, but then throughout the entire supply chain. So the idea that we don't have enough food and there are 1 billion people going hungry, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just an incredible dysfunctional system, really. So focus on soil health. I'm not going to redo the movie here. You heard why it is so important, the microbial life and so on. And globally, we have lost 50 to 70% of carbon in the soil. So 25% of carbon up in the atmosphere really has been released from the soil. So the carbon sequestration capacity here is estimated to be 1.8 gigatons of carbon per year if we were to start regenerating at scale, meaning agroforestry and shifting into regenerative practices at scale. There is nothing out there that comes even close to the idea of direct air capture and all of these techno dreams, of solving our issues. It makes zero sense. It's a complete waste of money in comparison to what we can do here in the biosector. I want to re-emphasize this now. They talked at length at desertification, right? Now consider that 86% of water here in the high desert is used by farmers. So when we see farms, huge tracts of land that are bare and are depleted of their microorganisms, that soil can't hold water. It can't absorb water and it can't hold water. And this here is an incredible statistic. For every 1% of carbon, organic carbon added to the soil can hold an additional 20,000 gallons of water per acre. So I was recently in a meeting where we actually talked to Senator Napier, about some farm bill issues. And their farmer at the table was saying, I groomed my soil to hold 5% organic matter content, right? And then my response was, that means your soil can hold 100,000 gallons of water per acre, right? That's massive. And so that is then the root cause for the evapotranspiration, right? Local evaporation of moisture going up and coming back down as rain, 40 to 60% of local rains. But what is really important is what do we do with all this information, right? The critical part, and this is where we are focusing on from a systems design perspective, we are asking farmers to start putting on a cover crop, to rotate a crop, to use different seeds that are more conducive to our bioregion, because that restores the soil back to health. Well, the next question coming up is, what is he going to do with this crop, right? Now you have to find a market, and when you are operating at a larger scale, the markets are extremely constrained, and it's very difficult for farmers to come in with differentiated products. The industrial food system cannot reform itself without the active participation by an informed public, because what it boils down to is that companies will have to decentralize their supply chain, they will have to use different aggregation practices, they have to change their recipes, they have to change their menus. And so that, to do that at scale is massive. It's $1 trillion part of the economy, and to retool is as involved in the food sector as it is in the energy sector. When you think about electric cars, what it takes, to replace millions of car mechanics who spent a lifetime on the combustion engine, and now you put them in front of an electric motor. It's the same in the food industry. When you change at scale, then you are dealing with transformative adaptations in the food sector. So one thing I wanted to point out, Menus of Change. The Harvard University has initiated a program about 6 years ago, which is called Menus of Change, in partnership with the Culinary Institute of America. And they are focused on training chefs to go into a bioregion and learn how to work with local ingredients. Create menus, create recipes that pull in what farmers come in with growing. So there is this exchange needed, right, between the farmer saying, I can grow these 5 or 6 different things, legumes or rotate, and that will restore my soil back to health. But out of these options, which one can the catering industry absorb? So here, USDA, Ellen's going to talk about this in more detail. USDA has put in big money into the Title II conservation programs of the Farm Bill, which pay farmers to put in a cover crop, to put in an insect strip, to repair a watershed. And right now, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is at a precipice, has allocated $19.5 billion into these programs. And they are desperately needed when you think about how farmers must, must be assisted, to make these changes here. And that's really when all your warriors here who are calling your legislator, the Republicans in the House are actually trying to kill this, so that can't happen, right? We need to preserve that. Corporate commitments, we all love farmers markets, we all love CSAs and so on, but that's 3% of market. 3% of total food sales is farmers markets and CSAs. Very, very difficult, to scale that in any form. So we need the participation of the corporate sector here. They're all committed, so let's see what we can do to actually make that a reality. So how can we help? Let's talk to our panel here. And Kate, why don't we start with you?
My name is Kate Kassad. I have spammed you all today on your seats with one of our promotional flyers about our meats. I hope after I talk you want to buy our meat. We began farming in Central Oregon in Bend. My husband started a farm called Juniper Jungle Farm back in 2010 on just a few acres of leased land. We are a direct-to-consumer farm, growing things organically. We went to farmers markets and we had a CSA, and we did that hustle at the small scale. Since then, we have scaled up our operation. We moved our farm from Bend to Madras. We now manage about 360 acres of farmland organically. Of that 360, we've taken over about 280 acres that was previously conventionally farmed, and we have transitioned it to regenerative organic. So, thank you. Some ecological context to our farm journey as well, which is quite relevant to being a citizen of Central Oregon. In the last 5 years, our farm has lost 80% of its irrigation waters. For a region in which our average precipitation is 8 to 11 inches of water, that is a dramatic change. And when this started to unfold, it came for our irrigation district first. This is kind of political, but we are a junior irrigation district. But I remember saying at the time, like, this is coming for all of us. Like, we will hurt first, but every other irrigation district will also be in the same boat. It's just a matter of time. A little bit about us. We've been organic since forever. We started monitoring our lands with the Savory Institute, who you were introduced to Alan Savory. The Savory Institute is a fantastic global organization who has educated us and supported us in emotional ways and educational ways. But they have a monitoring protocol called the Ecological Outcome Verification Program. Essentially, that shows that our management practices lead to improved ecological outcomes through our management. We are also a closed-loop farm. What that means is that we do not ever import fertility, and we do not export any waste. We also save all of our own seeds and replant them. We grow all of the feed for all of our animals on our farm organically, and that is our closed-loop system. So this is a little bit of like our farm journey. We used to grow a ton of potatoes. We're a very diversified vegetable farm. We grew everything that you would want in your CSA box. But because of the loss of irrigation waters, we've had to dramatically shift our business model, our markets, and our farming style. So we no longer get to grow vegetables in Madras. Just point blank, we for 10 years built markets for organic potatoes. We were selling them to Deschutes Brewery for their pub fries. We were doing potatoes at massive scale. We were very proud of this. We don't get to do that anymore because of the way that water is allocated in this basin. So in order to keep 100% of the soils that we manage covered with living canopy and living root systems, we have adopted more of this diversified pasture model in which we graze cattle, we raise hogs, we raise chickens, and then we always plant pollinator plots for the bees. This is an example of some of the rangeland that we took over management of that was very much desertifying. Over the past 3 years of intensive holistic management with our cattle, we have seen a massive amount of biodiversity return. We have increased the water holding capacity, and of course we are sequestering a lot more carbon given the living canopy. This is a little bit of promo about like what is the food on our plate and how does that like either create a system for regeneration or not. I'm quite happy that we live in a time right now in which the narrative that meat and cattle are the problem, they certainly are when they are managed poorly, but for us, given our ecological context, living in an arid region, all of us, they are quite literally the ecological solution for regeneration. We would have destroyed our farm had we continued to push potatoes. Soil health, I feel like, can often get abstracted in the mind. This is quite literally about species survival. This is a real-world example of land that has been managed for only 2 years with holistic planned grazing. In June, this was a 116-degree day. Dysfunctional soils that had only seen about 2 years of holistic planned grazing management, they sat at that 63 degrees Celsius, which I think is like 138. And then the soils that had been managed with holistic planned grazing for 11 years, they sat at about like, what is that, like 86 Fahrenheit? As a farmer growing crops, that's the difference between a crop surviving or not. It literally just comes to whether or not these soils are functional. That is the heat buffering capacity of soil health. I'm also involved with Agricultural Connections, which is a local food distribution business. A lot of what the rest of this incredible panel is going to talk about is how do we actually take food from farms like ours and make massive impacts, and it comes down to logistics. Agricultural Connections started in, I think, 2010, but in 2021, we started the transition of it into a farmer-owned cooperative. And so, 2022, spring of 22, that transition happened. Agricultural Connections is the only local food distribution business that focus on local foods. We cannot grow more farmers like us A farm like ours would never have been able to scale had it not been for a distribution mechanism that prioritized local food. The success of distribution is directly tied to the success of a resilient food system in Central Oregon. And as you see, this is a great study that HDFFA did with COIC and other wonderful organizations. When you buy local food, 76 cents of every dollar stays in this economy versus when you import food, only 28 cents. It just completely changes the dynamic of living here and doing this work. So that's really what I had to say.
Well, thank you. So we have got Bent Lapine Schools.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katrina Wiest. I'm the wellness specialist at Ben Lapine Schools, and it's great to see old friends. And I'm going to talk to you about our Farm to School program. How many of you guys know that we buy local foods for our schools in Oregon? Come on, everybody raise your hands because you're going to know after I'm done. All right, here we go. We feed total meals over 1.6 million meals a year. We do 18,000 meals a day. We are the biggest restaurant this side of the Cascades. Thank you very much. And you can see how we break it down, where breakfast is, lunch, a million lunches. That's incredible. We are touching lives. We have our own bakery. We actually have a Bend High is our production kitchen. Gara Schluter, where's Gara? She's back there. She's our assistant director of operations. She and our team, we get together and we decide with our amazing chefs what the kids are going to like and what they're going to eat. But how do we do that? By supporting Oregon agriculture. So you can see here we actually have our own bakery. Here is a map of what we're currently doing, if not more. We try to get as much local products into our school meal system just because we know it's the right thing to do. We want to support Oregon farms. We want our kids to eat healthy. And how do we do that? We do it together. This is the cool part. $10.5 million was given to the state of Oregon this year. Thank you, Tina Kokat. She and I have worked diligently for the last 19 years about Farm to School and how important this is. We got $322,000 into Ben Lapine just last year, all for local products. Is that enough? No. We can use more. Our food budget alone at Ben Lapine is $2.1 million. So could we make that $2.1 million be all local agriculture? Absolutely. It's going to take time, but we're getting there. 4 years ago, I left Ben Farmers Market. I was a Ben Farmers Market manager for 18 years, and so I knew it was the right thing to do is to take those producers that were at the market and put them into Oregon schools. And so Jeff Thomas is now the 4th generation farmer. The kids are eating peaches, plums, and nectarines right now today in the school meals from Thomas Orchards. Painted Hills Natural Beef, we buy 63,000 pounds a year of natural beef. We hand scoop 9,000 meatballs. You guys want to come help us? When we do spaghetti and meatballs. Because we know it's the right thing to do. We are supporting local by doing this. That is beef stroganoff and with it shoots mushrooms. The kids got this and they looked at it and they go, what is that? And we had to explain to them that mushrooms look a little different than the little button mushrooms you get in the stores. So again, it wasn't a big hit, but we're giving it back to them. Today, we had cod tacos. We have boat to school. We did blackened tacos. That was what I ate for lunch as well. I have to fight the kids to get my meal because we take the cod that's grown off the Oregon coast, or harvested, not grown, and then we put it in the school meal. We make our own sushi with the Oregon shrimp that we harvest off of the coast as well. Here's our in-house bakery, and Kate just learned this. Kate and Chris grow the wheat for our bakery on their land. So, we're so excited. Kama's Country Mills out of Eugene or Alvador, Oregon. We bake all our breads. The only thing we can't do is hamburger and hot dog buns because of the sheer volume we have to do, but we're working on it. We got an actual new machine that we're trying to think how we can do it. So we have dedicated bakers that get there at 3 a.m. every morning and bake fresh breads for the kids. Every sandwich is fresh baked, every pizza crust, everything we can think of other than hamburger and hot dog buns. Homemade granola, we do it. It's all made in-house. We also buy Portland ketchup. We got rid of that yucky ketchup, that Heinz whatever sugary stuff. I went to Portland PDX Foods and I said, you guys, and they're like, let's go. And so we buy pallets of ketchup, kids love ketchup. I don't know why, but they do. But they don't know they're getting Portland ketchup. Umi noodles. My friend Lola couldn't find a noodle that she liked, yakisoba noodles. She started her own company in Portland, all organic. We buy that for our Asian bars. Deschutes mushrooms. Ohana salsa every Tuesday comes in for us into our schools because, again, it's local and we know it's the right thing to do. Here's some of our meals. Sloppy bao, our homemade tomato soup with grilled cheese sandwiches. We have an amazing staff of chefs that make this happen. We go to them with ideas. I go with them with ideas, and they go, well, and I'm like, oh, we can do it. Let's buy it. And so we do. So you guys, we invite all of you to come have join lunch with us because it's the best lunch in town.
Okay, so after that, this is going to be a little bit of a letdown, but so my name is Mike. I run a food service operation for Neighbor Impact in Redmond. Yay! So I'm a chef, and I've been at this school thing for coming up on 2 years now. So that's me. What I am, I'm the food guy. What I'm not, I'm here representing kind of the end user, more the chefy side. And compared to Ben Lapine, I'm a very small consumer for my school. I have about 500 students in our program. We do 1 to 5-year-olds, some sort of disadvantaged background, be it economics or social disadvantage or some reason why they need a little boost, and Head Start and Neighbor Impact is there to help them. We do somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 meals a month. And then the important part that I kind of wanted to represent is that my annual reimbursement, so we run a program that is funded by ODE. It's a USDA program. But our overall reimbursement for that is about half. So Neighbor Impact has to find that other half every year in order for us to feed these kids. So I thought about this, and I thought from my perspective what the core issues are. I think policy and political issues, and kind of harkening back to me getting 50% of my reimbursement. I think there's a lot of policy issues that probably are at the core, because ultimately everything is going to come down to money. And I hate to be saying that, but I feel like that's the truth. Everything's going to be financially driven. So there's a political and policy component to getting this turned around. I believe it's a people problem. I think, or it's a people solution. So again, coming from the food, the chefy side, if we have a culture that wants the cheapest, quickest, then that is contradictory to everything we're talking about right now. If you can pay $8 for a chicken or $20 for a chicken, I think the average consumer is going to pay the $8 for the chicken. I'm not saying that blanket, but I'm saying enough people will choose that $8 chicken and not really care about what went into it, that I think that's the core of the problem. And restaurant-wise and just consumer-wise, build the relationship with food. So that quote there, food is language, by me. I taught for a long time, and I would kind of introduce things by saying food is language, and my job is to teach you how to speak it. And I would say overall, using that analogy, in my experience, and it's just mine, so it may or may not be right, I think overall, just to say a blanket statement, we're virtually illiterate. If we're using language as an analogy for food, America is barely holding on. We're speaking the language at a toddler level. And if we can learn to speak that language a little bit better and change our relationship with food, if we focus on the people component, a lot of this other stuff is, I think, secondary to getting people's minds turned around to following along. My personal thoughts are it's getting people behind the movement that is going to drive the movement. So that's where I'm at.
I'm Ellen Hammond with the Jefferson County Soil and Water Conservation District. And I want to ask you guys, how many of you guys remember ever voting for one of my bosses on your November ballot? Okay, a few of you. How many of you who voted knew what you were voting about? All right, well, you're about to find out. There's 3,000 soil and water conservation districts across the country. And their job is to work with public and private landowners to help them manage their resources. They were formed by President Roosevelt after the Dust Bowl. They realized that the federal government needed to help farmers conserve their soil and water. And so every state has one. Mostly there's one per county, and their job traditionally has been to implement federal farm programs. Congress every 5 years passes the Farm Bill, and it includes assistance to farmers, but it also includes things like SNAP or WIC or whatever they're calling it now, food stamp stuff. So, and nutrition programs. There's also marketing programs, and there's a whole lot of different things like that. But traditionally, that's what soil and water conservation districts have done. And they are a local government. That's why you vote for their directors, but they're not regulatory. It's all voluntary. But things have progressed beyond just soil and water. These are web pages from mine and Deschutes Soil and Water, and you can see pollinators, forest health, stream health, renewable energy. So we've gone a lot bigger than just soil and water. What we do is we're a one-stop shop, or that's what we try to be. And that is to provide education, technical assistance, and find funding for farmers and other managers of natural resources. And since this is a farm-to-table kind of thing, I'm going to focus on the ag part. And we work with partners. And so we don't do all that ourselves. We work with all the people we need to in order to get that information to the farmers. So state of Oregon there, we've got 44 conservation districts, most of them one per county. You elect our directors. In Central Oregon, we have one district per county. These little purple lines are zones. And so when you get your ballot, you are voting for a director for your zone. There's also some at-large positions. But now you're going to know what you're voting for so you can start making some informed decisions about this. So Central Oregon agriculture, it's extremely diverse. I have farm to table up there, but there's really not that much of it in Central Oregon. Mostly it's irrigated crops, especially like in Jefferson County. 90% of the irrigated lands are seeds, fresh veggies, and hay. And fun fact, half the carrot seed planted worldwide is grown in Jefferson County. And 60% of planted in the United States is grown in about 3,000 to 4,000 acres in Jefferson County. So when you go buy baby carrots, when you get whatever carrots at the grocery store, the chances, 60% chance that seed came from Jefferson County. So I mentioned education, and we partner with all kinds of folks. We do education in the classroom, out in the field, at events, hobby farmers, big production farmers, anybody who wants assistance with figuring out the best ways to manage their farmland or their little hobby farm or their greenhouse in Bend. And it's Central Oregon, it's the desert. Most of the agriculture in Central Oregon requires irrigation district. We've got over 200 square miles in irrigation districts, and down here, temperatures are rising. That's over 100 years of temperatures in Jefferson County. And last 30 years, it's going up. So irrigation efficiency is one of the key things that we're working on in Central Oregon. For large farmers, little farmers, anybody in between, that's one of the biggest things we're looking at is how to use that water most efficiently. The other biggest thing we do is work on soil health. And that is keeping living plants on the soil as much as possible. And I can tell you, having worked for years in Central Oregon, most of the pastures in Central Oregon are completely overgrazed and poorly irrigated. So what we're doing is helping folks learn how to manage those pastures so that you're improving the soil health by managing your plants. Cover crops, they're around culver or cash crops here, experimenting with solar panels to provide shade to reduce the evapotranspiration rates of the plants. We're doing research on that. So we're doing all kinds of things to help landowners improve their soil health. Deschutes Soil and Water Conservation District is doing more of the urban ag stuff. In Jefferson County, we're mostly working production agriculture. And most of those people are not doing what Kate's doing on her place. So we're working with mostly all those other people. But Deschutes County is working with partners on school gardens, community gardens. They're working on, there's a workshop coming up in next year, partnership with the High Desert Food and Farm Alliance and a bunch of other folks, targeting farm-to-table kinds of people. The SWCD will mostly be talking about the irrigation, soil health kinds of stuff. But there is some of that going on in Deschutes County. So the Farm Bill, there's all kinds of programs. These are the programs we're doing in Central Oregon mostly. Again, irrigation efficiency, rangeland health, energy efficiency, and there is a food security initiative looking at folks that are doing more of the farm to table, working with irrigation districts, and also I think Klaus mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's $19.5 billion nationwide, not for Oregon, for these conservation programs that already, there's too many people applying for assistance, for those kinds of things. So we're really hoping for this additional funding so that we can continue to work with landowners to help them work on irrigation management, soil health, all those kinds of things. Okay, the end.
I grew up in a farm in a cherry orchard in eastern Oregon, and why I'm telling you this story is because it relates kind of to this and why I'm here, but I was one of those kids that would watch the planes come in and spray, and my parents would be like, don't go out while they're spraying, and of course, like, what does a kid do? They go out while they're spraying. Like, don't eat the cherries after they spray. Of course, then I eat the cherries, and I wonder why my gut doesn't work. I kind of wonder. But at 12 years old, I did everything on the cherry farm. My parents made me work my ass off. And at 12 years old, I went to Safeway and was like, you should buy my cherries. They ended up buying them, and they bought them for $1.50 a pound. I also sold them on the side of the road for 10 cents a pound wholesale and 75 cents a pound farm direct. And there's a big difference, and the reason I tell you about these dollars, which was back in the 80s, is that 10 cents to 10 cents is what my parents got. 75 cents is what I got, and I had to then pay my parents. But the point is like most farmers actually make less than 50 cents on their goods. And the fact that now you buy cherries for $6 or $7 a pound, those farmers are probably still getting that same amount. The reason that my parents sold them for 10 cents is because they could sell them wholesale to Japan. And in Japan, they're buying them consistently at a volume that was made it so my parents could sell. They were part of a cooperative, and they all agreed to do that. Instead of going out and being like, oh, hey, Safeway, hey, Annie, I forgot your name. So it makes it hard. Like, Kate can't just go out, although she's doing a good job, but like, and you should read her flyer, but like that makes farming hard. They can't do all of it, right? Like, that's something that I learned. And what I came here to do 15 years ago, back when Phil Chang and I worked together, and Katrina and Ellen, I wanted to connect because I grew up watching my parents like make fake Social Security numbers for migrant workers so they could work on our farm, and understanding that they had to pay all these fees to do certain things, and I wanted to understand that. That study that Kate showed, that for every dollar you spend on local food, 76 cents stays in the community. That means that I pay Kate for her pigs, pork, and then she goes and buys gas, or she goes and buys seeds, or she goes and buys something from Annie, and then Annie buys it. It's circulating locally. Importing food means we're bringing it into the community, even from out of the region, and that's 28 cents. So to say your dollar actually speaks, it does. It makes a huge difference. And so what I like to do is I transitioned from I founded the High Desert Food and Farm Alliance nonprofit, which was which was basically a way to connect everyone, connect farmers who are working their asses off in the field, who don't have time to go and talk to Ellen, who's like, I don't even know who the farmers are to talk to, Katrina, who's like, what farmer do I talk to about getting this? I wanted to make all those connections, and so I started this nonprofit. It's still going. I left after 10 years. In June, I'm on a sabbatical until October, and starting a consulting company because I want to help farmers and all sorts of organizations basically build resilient communities and rural communities in particular, and to support people to write grants to get that money, to help the money that's coming from the federal government to get it to the farmers that don't know how to, don't have time to write grants or even where to go to look for them. So that's me.
All right, so we have some questions, prepare them, but let me start first here. So the objective really is to scale buying local foods, right? Buying local products. So how do we go about scaling this? What are the obstacles in the farm to table supply chain? So this is the big conversation that you see in the Farm Bill also, farm to table, right? Because a farmer needs to have access to maybe an aggregator, processor, logistics, in order to reach the table, reach a consumer, reach logistics, and so on. And so what is missing in the Central Oregon supply chain that makes it difficult for the school district or neighborhood economics here to buy from local farmers in volumes? Who wants to get started? Kate, how about you? Here's the microphone. And what are the obstacles, for example, selling meat to get into the market with?
Processing, where there's not enough meat processors, so we have to drive our animals 3 hours away to the closest processor that will take any new farms or ranches. There's one USDA processor in Central Oregon, and they're 8 months to a year out. You can do custom exempt at a couple of the local places. So if you buy a quarter or a half animal share from a farm, that's a different system of processing meat than a cut of meat to local vor or meat to the schools that need to go USDA. So we're lacking in processors on the meat side, but also we're hugely lacking in processors on the vegetable side too. If we used to sell our potatoes to the farm to school program, and there are farmers who want to sell carrots into it, but they need to have them peeled, they need to be chopped. It sounds like for Mike's program, they need to be weighed out, and there needs to be nutrition information by portion. So we are in need of this middle processing to take the raw product from the fields and turn it into something that the institutional buyers can use. So that takes infrastructure and it takes capital.
I guess our number one, so being that we're so large as a school district, we get reimbursement for meals. For every child that eats, we get a USDA reimbursement. That reimbursement, after we pay out the wages and the benefits for all our staff, we're left with $1 to make a meal that has 2 ounces meat alternate, ounce of grain, fruit, vegetables, and milk. You take milk out of there, it's 26 cents. Off the top, we're left with 74 cents for 2 ounces meat alternate, ounce of grain, fruit, and vegetables. How do we do that? We don't want the middleman. We want to go direct to the farmer and say, can you give me 63,000 pounds, or can you give me 4 hogs that can be processed? Because if I put in that middleman piece, then that's an extra cost that comes off of that 74 cents, and therefore I'm depleting my amount. We make from scratch because we know it's again, the right thing to do, but it's also, it's economically feasible for us to do so. So again, that's where we're coming from. So I guess Our biggest thing is, again, USDA or the state of Oregon has to see nutrition as part of the educational curriculum for standards that have to be met. Why are we doing math, science, and all these wonderful things, but why are we, and physical activities, even a curriculum standard, but nutrition is not. So for the last 20 years, we've been on our soapbox saying you have to make nutrition part of the educational experience for a kid so that they have the tools in their tool belt for life.
So last year in 2022, the federal government spent $183 billion on nutritional assistance programs. That's SNAP and WIC and school programs and so on. That's a lot of money. But is it wisely spent? I mean, is this money really helping to access local foods?
So I guess kind of piggybacking and then also tying in what Klaus is saying, on my end for my operation, I would say my biggest, thinking about this for a week now, I think my biggest issue is staff. The way my reimbursement works, I have 3 staff members. So the way my reimbursement works is we get reimbursed similarly per meal, but again, it's approximately half of what we actually put out over the year. There's some really strict guidelines about what I can spend that reimbursement on. So even if I wanted to get more staff to facilitate us baking our own breads and do all this stuff, I would love to do everything in-house. It's 100% not possible for me. I couldn't ever do it. I'm already spending the maximum limit. When I create my annual budget every August, I just put in the maximum amount that I'm allowed for all of my purchases, because if I was to say, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to do this farm to school thing, and I explain it to them, and that's all well and good, and it sounds great. And then they look at my budget and they say, well, you can't do that because, well, if you want to do that, the organization, the sponsor, is going to have to pay for that extra staff member. My reimbursement won't cover anymore. I'm already, again, I'm in the hole 50%, and I've maxed out the amount of money I can spend on things besides food. So I can't allocate that money to get new staff members, to do better food, to do things with my own 2 hands. It's actually prohibited within the guidelines. So I'm buying more stuff that doesn't require as much processing. I'm buying my breads. I'm buying stuff that I just don't have, I don't have the ability to do it no matter how much I want to. So I think my biggest challenge is staffing, because if I'm buying things straight from the farm, that's going to mean more time processing it on my end, washing it, cutting it up, things to that effect, which I would love to do, but I just can't. It's just not logistically possible. So for me, it's a logistics problem. It really comes down to just logistics. To answer your question, I would say no. I mean, for my experience, it would be nice if I could write a proposal that would say, here's what I want to spend this money for. And I'm going to exceed the threshold for my labor, but here's why I'm going to exceed it, and here's where that money is going to go, and here's how it's going to be spent. And if I could at least put that out there, but it's a hard line.
So since you are working mostly with younger kids, right? Mm-hmm. Can you accept WIC money, for example, to deliver meals?
No, we can't allow parents to supply their own food. If they were on WIC, they wanted to feed their kid, that's off the table. I can't accept money outside of my regular reimbursement through the state.
Yeah, so same issue that if there was a local processor who could work on your behalf to mm-hmm. deliver and do this at scale, so that may be an opportunity. So we have a bunch of tech guys here today, and literally the agricultural sector, the food sector, is going through a transformative change. One thing that you will hear about is precision agriculture, right? Precision agriculture involves, for example, irrigations, what Ellen was talking about, but it also involves more careful studies of soil, a more careful application of fertilizers and pesticides, so to really reduce the chemical inputs. So that's precision agriculture. All sorts of tools are needed to measure soil carbon, measure soil health. So there is a really wide field that's opening up. Fertilizers, biofertilizers, huge area, to work with biocomposts and things of that sort. So do we have any questions from the audience here? I saw some raised.
So for Kate, the process of getting from starting your farm to where you are now, how many learning hurdles do you have to jump through? Like, I'm assuming it's a lot, unless you're a generational farmer, which I don't know.
Yeah, we're first generation. Yeah.
So, what kind of, like, I'm guessing you would have benefited from some sort of mentorship program or educational program or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. And we've seen a lot of support. We've seen, HDFFA was very instrumental in helping Chris scale potatoes at first in the form of technical assistance and grant writing. This is a huge problem for all the farmers and all the organizations. Everybody's underfunded, as you can hear, right? So, and we can't actually wait around for the government to improve the funding. There's a need for a ton of private capital. This is side conversation, but private capital is going to have to fill the gap. Yes, mentorship programs extremely helpful. HDFFA has provided, technical assistance. Through the Savory Institute, we have been mentored in shifting from being a row crop vegetable farm to now being very much a holistic planned grazing type of operation. I was a part of EcoTrust's Ag of the Middle program, which unfortunately they stopped doing, but it was a business accelerator program. Farms struggle hugely in business management. They could farm all day, but have you looked at your cash flow? No. So I would say technical, if the question is how do you get involved, there are so many ways to apply your brain to help agriculture and food systems. It's extremely stimulating, challenging, fun, rewarding work. So everybody should be putting their time towards this. I truly believe it's so rewarding and it's so needed. We need all the brains. I hope that was helpful.
Kate just mentioned Agriculture of the Middle, which was a program developed by EcoTrust, which is a Portland nonprofit. Wonderful research they did. It's basically dealing with farmers who are too big to sell at farmers markets and CSAs, but they're not big enough to really enter the corporate markets and do contract farming. So they are sort of suspended, and they have a very difficult time selling their products profitably. So the temptation then is to monocrop something, just to specialize in one thing. And go ahead.
For political context, it's not a mistake that Ag of the Middle disappeared. When Earl Butz was in power, it was get bigger, get out. This is why we have the current model of agriculture that we have right now. It was strategically designed to remove people from land. How land use law is set up in Oregon is both to protect land and also they expect one family to manage 160 acres. That's a certain kind of farming. And so the Ag of the Middle systems have disappeared, and our generation will be rebuilding all of these systems of the middle, which I believe is where true regenerative agriculture lives.
When you look at yield per acre, which is what the big farms and the food system want you to focus on, is yield per acre. If you focus on calories per acre and the quality of calories per acre, the farmer of the middle wins out. Now, no issue. Because when you have a multi-crop farm with integrated livestock, it is the most efficient form of farming. And healthful. Yeah, go ahead.
Most of the cover crops in Central Oregon you're not going to see as food, partly because we don't have processors. So there's interest in some of the oil seeds and some of the pulses, different peas and things like that. To process them, you're going to have to ship them probably to Eastern Washington. So you're going to lose money. Yeah. Now, some people are growing those cover crops because of soil health, but they're not shipping them anywhere. So that's one of the biggest issues is processing.
And that's actually, another great example because there is an emerging market for pea protein. They're using pea protein extracts for meat alternatives. And I'm like really not in favor of like Impossible Burgers because it's just like a horrible science show. But when you but when you go, because they don't pay attention to their supply chain. I mean, they're just sourcing GMO crops, and the argument is we're reducing harm to the environment. Well, it's not about reducing; it's about regenerating, right? So they had an opportunity to really move the needle, and they missed it, and they're losing billions of dollars, well deserved. But but peas, are a very legit cover crop. They sequester nitrogen out of the atmosphere and into the ground. It's a wonderful crop. So here, that would be a perfect cover crop. But the only processor that was built is in Northeast Washington, which is way too far away. So why not? And today you can build mills and processing plants that don't have to be ginormous, right? You can build small-sized and medium-sized processing plants because the technology has been miniaturized to where that is possible and financially feasible. So yeah, it's all about innovation, about people thinking out the box, looking at market openings like that. Absolutely, yeah.
I'll just tell you, for our cover crops, because of this, we can't just grow a pea and sell a pea into the pea market. We plant like a 12 species cover crop mix, and peas are a part of it. And then the highest value use of that is first we graze it with the cattle in the spring. We let it grow back all summer long, and then we come back and harvest it all as the grain or the seed. And the 12 species mix is now just like this really wonderful mix of grains. And the highest value add that we can add to that crop is to then feed that to our pigs. So that's how we've made use of cover crops. But again, you have to have a model or an end product and a market that supports like that sort of diversity. And I'll add that level of diversity, if we can build market opportunities for more models like that. We planted just a very a monocrop of our triticale, and then which is a grain mix. It's a hybrid of a wheat and a rye. And then we planted a plot with our mix of the peas and the triticale and the vetch and the mixture of things. The yield off of the monocropped triticale was about 2,000 pounds per acre. And then this diverse mix, the yield off of it was about 5,000 pounds per acre. So like not only does the soil benefit, the pollinators benefit, but like the yield increases when we plant things synergistically. But we need the market opportunities to support like a product like that.
One thing that we are working on is to create the idea of innovations brokerage. So innovations brokerage means, that, Katrina, I think I see that's what you're working on, right? To become the middle person, right? So to see, here's a farmer who has an opportunity, but we need a processor. There's somebody there's a franchise or whatever, we can bring this into the community. So that really is what it takes, is to link up market participants to reach this farm to table, to bridge the supply chain. So Katrina, you want to talk a little bit about your plans?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what I realized when I was younger was that really, I wanted to listen to Kai Risdall. Do you know Kai Risdall from Marketplace, who has a sexy voice? And I was like, I really want to know what he's saying. And so I went and studied economics because I was like, really, everybody speaks in how change is made is through money, right? Realistically. And so if I can understand markets, use that to understand systems, and then hear Kate's story, and then go hear someone else who's doing a project where they want to process that, that's what I do. I'm a connector. It's part of the reason I also started the Oregon Community Food System Network, which is a statewide network, and it has like 85 allies in health and I mean, you name it. And if we can all work together with not just farm, but with public health, with doctors, and make those systems work better, that's what I look for. And that's what I'm trying to do with the consulting.
You've all heard tonight about how this amazing farmland that we have in Central Oregon can produce, can be regeneratively farmed, produce amazing food that, feeds an entire, community food system. That land cannot produce that food and be regeneratively farmed if it is under subdivisions, destination resorts, or low density residential. And so that is, in terms of people thinking about what you can do locally, we've heard a lot about the state legislature, we've heard a lot about Congress, but to keep land in agriculture, to keep land in forest land, to keep land as high desert, and optimize those lands for carbon storage and food production, you need to get involved in local land use issues. And so I just, sorry, I should have introduced myself. I'm Phil Chang. I'm one of your 3 county commissioners for those of you who are Deschutes County residents. And I would just invite you all to track land use issues in Deschutes County closely.
I would say, first of all, be informed. We have a Republican a congressperson here. They're about to vote down the $19.5 billion allocation to the conservation programs. That would be horrible, right? We really need this money, not just here, but throughout the United States. And so the Farm Bill, right now, the Farm Bill is in process, right? That is huge. So I would say those things. Then when it comes to local, tell us, what do you really want to focus on?
I would say use your dollar.
Buy the products.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to the suppliers that we use at the schools. Tell them that you heard about the
Yeah.
story. Keep them in business. Keep those families going because we need them as well as everybody else.
Go, and if it isn't there, like go to Market Choice, go to Newport, go to
Yeah.
wherever and ask for local if you
Yeah.
don't see it. Because consumer demand is what changes
Yeah.
markets.
Agreed.
Less
To ask. Agricultural Connections, which we took over as a group of farmers, like it is the local food distributor that's going to provide scalable options for the farmers, so we all don't have to keep being our own salespeople. Boom, boom. Agricultural Connections, like once you get elbow deep into food distribution, you realize like it doesn't make a lot of money, and I think that it's not supposed to. Like there are valuable businesses that provide value beyond profit, and it's one of the most critical community resources to keep food at scale possible. In Agricultural Connections, we have a couple of philanthropic funders, and we need more. Just straight up, that distribution mechanism needs more. And so that is a call to action for our community. Agricultural Connections is your local cooperative. Think about that. Or buy from them, and definitely whatever restaurants you frequent, ask who they get their food from. Hopefully they might funnel it to Agricultural Connections, and it's not just Cisco. It takes a little bit more intention, but like the ripples are giant. Our farm wouldn't exist without Agricultural Connections as a mechanism. Yeah.
Ask your kid what they had for lunch at school. And ask them where it came from. Because I think that's really important. They go through the line and they don't understand where the ground starts for that food. And so we need to educate our kids because they're the next generation. Yeah. And we're feeding them, but tell them where it's coming from and ask them what they had for lunch at school.
Yeah.
So I'm actually working with AI right now, with ChatGPT. We're writing a manual, basically, to engage the mind, the heart, and the physical world to shift, your focus on regeneration. With AI, you can anchor the know-how that is required to restore soil, to adapt to local specifications and so on. Huge work being done in that particular field. But then there's a bunch of other stuff, right?
I would say, like, coming back to Agricultural Connections, because, it's a complicated system. We've identified that the region, in order to maybe fulfill more of these big institutional accounts, we have to do more crop planning so that every season, it's not every individual farm is like, I shall grow kale and cabbage and all of the same things as your neighbor. But in fact, we specialize, so we might grow more things at scale to fill the institutional accounts. And so some sort of software that might help us think region-wide about the crop needs at the bigger scale, and then with what farms are available, like how do we divvy up? Like that would be a very cool program for very technologically challenged people.
And you can do that with AI in blinding speed, you know, to do this localization part.
Yeah, soil measurements, moisture measurements, to help with irrigation scheduling. A lot of that kind of thing would be really helpful. He mentioned precision agriculture, more of the GPS use on farm equipment to help center pivots that are computerized so that you can put the water where you need it, when you need it, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of, yeah, what? Go ahead.
There's lots of opportunities, I think.
Yes.
We should have a meeting and just focus on that, because the tech sector is, when you look at AgTech and so on, there is so much going on, and there is such a shortage of talent, you know, in the field, because no one has really focused on it yet. But now with the tech sector migrating out of, you know, lots of people are losing their jobs because of AI and so on, well, this is a great sector to flow into.
None of the farmers are currently positioned to take advantage of the emerging carbon markets or the emerging like ecological services market. Like we could prove that we've doubled production with 20% of the water. Like, is there a marketplace or reward for that? Like, we don't have any systems to aggregate that data to be ready for that emerging market. So that would be another really cool area.
Yeah, I mean, the soil and water conservation districts are completely, sort of have completely lost the connection to the public mind. And they were formed under Roosevelt in the 1930s during the Dust Bowl crisis. And the intention was to get money from the feds down to the farmer, really to the farmer, and not get lost in the middle. Yeah? And so to have to develop a direct pipeline. So they are local people. I mean, the soil and water conservation districts are locals, so they know the farmers on a personal level. But last November, here in Deschutes County has 4 positions, 2 positions vacant, no one even running for it. So that tells me that no one really knows what that is supposed to do. The soil and water conservation district is supposed to be the link to federal resources, right, that help you, not just the farmer, but also the entire farm-to-table supply chain to develop, farm to school, farm to hospital, you know, farm to institution, those kinds of programs. So, yeah.
With soil and water, when it comes to voting, finding out information on these people you're supposed to be voting for is really hard.
You're right.
So to make an informed choice about something you don't know a lot about, it's very frustrating.
You're completely right. And in the voters pamphlet, usually they don't even put in a little blurb. So, I know. And so all I can do is suggest that you go on the internet, look up your soil and water conservation district, call that number and say, I see some people are running, tell me about them. Because unless you're really connected in some kind of farming community, you don't know who the hell these people are.
Can't the website have something?
A lot of them do. Like, ours could be better. And I've really liked that idea for Jefferson County, is to provide more information about each of at least the current members. And so I'll talk to Deschutes about that too.
To get super policy wonky about soil and water conservation districts, in the state of Oregon, there are basically 2 kinds. The soil and water conservation districts that have a local tax assessment and the ones that don't. Here in Central Oregon, they don't. The ones that have a local tax assessment, Wasco County and some other places, they do 10, 20 times more work with their community because they have some local-based funding that they can leverage. They can find all sorts of federal and state money and leverage that money. So if you want to see functioning, like high-functioning, robust soil and water conservation districts, yeah, we need board members. But if the money is there, then the board members will, then people will be interested in running for the board too. So
fundamentally, that is something that we can consider in the 3 counties.
But that's really super interesting. I was in a lobby meeting. I was in a lobby meeting with Senator Tim Knopp before, while they were still out, talking about one of the soil conservation bills that were on the table and almost didn't make it. And my point was, this is seed money, right? Because in order to access federal money, you have to have an infrastructure in place so you can apply for it. Because you have to collect data, you have to engage with research and so on, and then you can apply for this grant money. We're literally leaving millions of dollars on the table because we don't have a system in place to access it. Right? It's just just one of them. Sorry. So yeah, but it's just one of those things here. Where when we don't have enough information to really understand what this is supposed to do and how it works, then we end up making mistakes. But right now, $19.5 billion flowing into the system, right? And we don't have any grant writers, right? We don't really have the technical assistance providers that can help a farmer to accumulate the different modules, because these programs are modular, right? So a farmer may need to do 5 or 6 of them in order to really make an impact on his or her soil. And so who is going to do that? So Katrina, hopefully, is going to step in. But so these are the kinds of things that we really wanted to bring to the table and surface, right? This is important stuff. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.